Cindy's Library. I'm Cindy, and today I want to talk about, finally, what I managed to read in the month of May. So, let's see here. Start with physical books. I managed to reread all of Sweet Cheese, Sweet Home. Oh, let's just say that I have been having a lot of alone time recently and would really like a cat for such times. If I ever do get a cat, I'll certainly let you guys know. Don't know how soon that is going to be though, but I was definitely in the mood for something adorable and fluffy like Cheese Sweet Home. See, I also finally finished Villette. I'll post a link to my full review in the description. Short version, this is an excellent book, and I'm still working through how much I actually enjoyed it and liked it. Not quite sure about that, although I will definitely say I don't mind Lucy Snow as the main protagonist, in spite of how quiet she is. She's only quiet externally. Let's see. Oh, for Tolkien Talk, we did Smith of Wootton Major, which was very fun. I'd forgotten how excellent this is. So, there's that. Excellent short story. It's a fairy tale, not exactly for children, and it is wonderful. Highly recommend it if you want to give Tolkien some try. And I read Marilla of Green Gables, which was very fun, and it's exactly what you would think it is. It is the story of Marilla, basically important events of her life. It's about 10 years or so before Anne comes, but when it ends. But yeah, how Marilla becomes Marilla, the Marilla that we all know and love from Anne of Green Gables. And I quite enjoyed it. And let's see. I listened to My Life in Middlemarch. I forget the author, I'm afraid. It was interesting. Lots of information about George Eliot, aka Marianne Evans. And so that part was quite enjoyable. But still, I didn't entirely enjoy it. Maybe part of it was the fact that it was an audiobook. Not that there was a problem with the performance, but maybe this is just the type of book I do better actually reading. I don't know. I kind of wanted a bit more about the author. She gave us a few things about herself, but very little overall. I enjoyed the one I read about a guy whose life was changed by Jane Austen last fall, much more than this one. So, and let's see, what else? Oh, I also managed to listen to all three of the Wax and Wayne novels that are out. So I am all ready for the last one when it comes out next year. Yay! forgotten some of the intricacies of that world and got some interesting characters. This is the same world as the Mistborn series, and it's of course connected to Brandon Sanderson's Greater Cosmere. But this particular world, well, let's just say that there were some significant things that happened at the end of the Mistborn series that changed everything. And this is what, maybe 500 years into the future? And there's still allomancy, still feruchemy, and technologically they are roughly about second half of the 18th century, maybe beginning of the 19th century. You've got the civilized areas like the capital. It's very, very, think New York or London, about 1900. They have cars and everything. And then you have the roughs, which is very Wild Westish still. Waxillium Ladrian, he is the main character. He is from a very noble house, and he hated it. So what did he do when he came of age? Went out into the roughs and found himself earning his keep as a lawman, and a good and ethical one, actually. Quite effective because he is twin-born, having one alchemical and one feruchemical power to assist him. It's interesting that both of those seem to be, I'm not sure if they're actually less prevalent or not, those powers. But there are no full Mistborns, and having twin-born is rare. Having two of either power is even rarer. Having three, you could probably count on one hand if that number of people who actually have three of either. So, not sure what's going on with that. But anyway, tragedy happens to Wax out in the roughs, and that happens in the prologue basically. And what with one thing and another, he finds himself back in the capital city as head of his house, whether he likes it or not. His partner, Wayne, he was basically his deputy and sidekick out in the roughs. He comes too. They both quickly find themselves finding trouble, because trouble is there to be found of a more subtler nature. And along the way, they meet a number of other people, principally Marasi, who is, well, at the beginning, she is training to become an advocate in the law. And there is her cousin, Sorensen, I think so. Anyway, lots of alchemical mayhem. Wax and Wayne do have a way of stirring things up, and if not coming out unscathed, coming out at least. So, very enjoyable. There have been hints from the first book that there's something larger going on. And I can't say any more about that because, one, because it hasn't been fully explored, and two, because I don't want to spoil anything. But yes, it's good to be back in this world, see how it has changed since the end of the events in the Mistborn series, and Wayne is Annette. That's all there is to it. And a kleptomaniac, sort of. He always leaves something in trade for whatever he takes. I'll give him that much, but what logic he uses, I don't pretend to know. It will probably break my mind if I understood it. Anyway, so I got through all of those. It'd be nice to reread the Mistborn series eventually, but we got some other things to work on first, which is fine. Yes. And I also read Property of the Rebel Librarian by Alison Barnes. So, a very interesting book. I enjoyed it. It made me think. It all starts with our main protagonist. Want to say she's in 6th, 7th grade at middle school, and she loves reading. And everything is going along nicely as far as she is concerned, until one day her parents find her reading a book that they disapprove of. And the next thing she knows, there is censorship everywhere. The librarian's been suspended pending further investigation. An author visit's canceled. The library is locked, and when it is opened again, or maybe 1/4 of the books that were in there left. So this is extreme. And our protagonist, loving books, she decides to take matters into her own hands and starts a library of her own featuring banned books. One of the distressing things is her parents are the main instigators in all of this action. And our protagonist doesn't really entirely get their viewpoint. And that is the one part I would say I wish had been done differently. I don't feel that this book really expresses fully the parents' position. But certainly the parents' position is quite extreme. I will give them this. They are very involved in their daughter's life, keeping a close eye on things, and so you can't fault them for their involvement and being concerned parents as far as that part goes. But yeah, this is extreme. I mean, in one part, at the beginning, shortly after everything goes down, they take all of her books And when she gets them back, say a month later, they, lo and behold, have taken out things, crossed out things, and apparently Old Yeller no longer dies. And even in Anne of Green Gables, the disastrous tea party with Diana gets taken out. So, very interesting, made me think. I didn't think they did the parent side and wasn't quite fully developed. I would have to say the biggest problem with the parents is they never actually sat down and discussed anything with our heroine. They mostly just tell her, you can do this, you can't do that. With very little about going into backgrounds and concerns and things like that, and the why behind things. And it is also true, I'm not a parent, but I've seen enough parents to see how they want to protect their children, which is a wonderful thing for them to want to do. But you can't protect them forever. Expecting them to leave home at 18 and be able to deal with the adult world without having been exposed to anything. Now that doesn't work. Much better to sit down and discuss things. And if you do have legitimate concerns about things, fair enough. And I get to the old age of our protagonists, they're old enough that you should start sitting down and talking with them through things and listening to them. And yes, they are still young, still don't have experience. Fair enough as far as that goes. And it's a balancing act. I've seen that in the lives of those around me, figuring out how much agency at what stage to give kids and teenagers as they are growing up, and it can be very individual. The other thing that I would say is troubling about this story, and not about the story itself, just about the situation as portrayed, is this was a very massive thing. It seemed like pretty much all of the parents were okay with that. But was that really true? And those were some pretty deep cuts they made to the school library. If you feel a certain way, fair enough. And you certainly have responsibility for how your own child is raised. But something so deep that will affect so many other people. I mean, maybe half of the nonfiction was left, and maybe a fourth at best of the fiction was left, and most of that the youngest levels of reading. So I have to give this book high marks for making me think, seeing as how I have rambled on about it like this. But that is everything I read for the second half of May. So yay! Excellent reading month. So if you read any of these books, I would love to hear if you have, how your May went reading wise. Feel free to leave comments. Thank you so much for stopping by. And until next time, hope we all stay safe and healthy, and happy reading.